Your mission and your vision determine your direction. This isn't just for entrepreneurs or businesses. As an individual, you have a mission as well. And if you aren't sure what your mission is, that could be a part of the reason that you're feeling stuck or stagnant. Because without direction, it's very hard to get anywhere meaningful. The most successful people you know didn't get there by accident. The person at the top of the mountain didn't stumble there. Welcome to Change Made Easy. Changing your habits, routines, and behaviors is hard. We make it easy. I'm Paul Leviton, a board licensed coach who has been helping people just like you to create positive change in their habits, routines, and behaviors for over 10 years. Oprah Winfrey said, "The greatest discovery of all time is that a person can change his future by merely changing his attitude." It's known that your attitude and mindset dictate much of how you go through life. Change your thoughts, change your life. It's that simple. Now, let's make it easy. James Boardman is a former Royal Marine sniper who served in the military for over 10 years, including multiple tours in Afghanistan. After retiring from the military, James found himself struggling with the major changes in his life, questioning himself both personally and professionally. Those struggles led him to focus internally, using his military training to start to train his mind. And after battling with depression, anxiety, and a lot more that we get into in the episode, James has since become an author, a speaker, and entrepreneur, and has dedicated his life to helping people change their attitudes towards themselves and what they're capable of. Today, James and I discuss showing up when you don't feel like it, what it means for you to lead by example, why you need to remember the mission, and how your past conditionings affect your future results. If your mindset truly does dictate your reality, then changing your mindset starts right here, right now. So enjoy this conversation with James Boardman.
I joined the Royal Marine Commandos at the age of 23. My teens and my early 20s, I was pretty lost, getting caught up in just drinking, fighting, going nowhere. And so I literally closed down my life, upped sticks and joined the military. And over 8 years, I trained to be a Royal Marine Commando. I then became a Royal Marine sniper, served in Afghanistan. And I kind of got to the point after 8 years where I didn't want to be away from my kids anymore. So the dynamics of where I was when I was 23 and when I left at 32 was kind of very different. You know, there were no kids at the start. There was no responsibilities, no fatherhood. So I made the very difficult decision to leave the military. And I was very much in love with the military and the way of life and the brothers and the camaraderie, the excitement. And I felt a real passion towards my identity about being a Royal Marine. You know, it was something that was a part of me. If you've ever been in the military, it becomes part of your DNA, and it still is. But, you know, my kids needed a dad around. My dad died when I was 6, so I knew what it was like to grow up without a dad. And I made the plunge in 2011 to leave the military. It was a really, really difficult 3 years after leaving the military. The confliction of identity caused me to mentally crumble and struggle with PTSD. And when I came out, I was trying to live my life as a college lecturer, and I was still Sergeant James Boardman in the wrong environment. So it was very difficult to be able to focus on who I was, you know, and that confliction created a lot of mental stress. And I ended up getting divorced. I ended up separated, and I ended up being in a place where I got to the point where I was ready to sort of tap out of life. And one evening, I almost decided to end everything. Kind of got to that point where I was going to take an overdose, and I wasn't thinking very clearly. And I just looked at the picture of my kids and said, I can't believe I'm actually going to do this, or thinking of even doing this. How would they feel? And I ended up getting up and getting out the house and just going for this 3-hour walk/run, which was enough to clear my head in terms of enough to know what I was doing. That wasn't right. And I come back and I said, fuck, this is not the way I want to live my life. You know, I've got to be a role model to my kids. I've got to find out who I am. I've got to change the way I live my life.
I appreciate you being so open and honest and sharing that, because I think that's super powerful. And I always
like to highlight things like this, I'm always trying to highlight the struggles that people have, because that's a big part of what I do, is explain that everyone struggles in their own way.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of times we look at people through this lens of, oh, like they have it all together. Like, look at James, he's so cool. He's this ex-sniper and he's had all these adventures and now he's a successful dad with 4 kids with multiple businesses and yada, yada, yada. But they don't know that you were on the brink of suicide one day with, you know, ready to, as you said, end it all.
And I think it's important to understand for everybody the realism in people's lives, so that people can be congruent with their own values, their own structures, and people will take comfort in my struggles. People will take comfort in the fact that I struggle.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to do that, you know, because it actually makes them go, well, I'm not the only one.
Yeah, 100%. I agree 100%. So as you've gone from this Marine sniper, not Marines, I don't know what it's called.
Right. Yeah.
Marine, a Marine sniper, you know, 8 years in the Army, and now you're doing mindset and mental well-being. And a lot of people wouldn't see that as like the most hyper masculine thing in the world, or even for guys to talk about this. So how do you see the relationship between those two? And how is it that you went from being this super macho guy to like the guy who talks about his feelings?
So I think one of the first things to understand is that the macho guy thing is, I think, a natural perception of how people see military people. Like, now there's a time and a place where you wear that hat. You know, that time and a place is when you're at war and you turn it on. But I think for a lot of people to understand, a lot of people in the military, or a lot of people are just normal men, just dads, just husbands, you know, grandparents, and, you know, some of the older ranks. We're just guys who are trained to do a job when called upon. And, you know, even when I was in the military, you know, I had there's a lot of alpha males under one roof, which can be like an ego fest. But I think underneath all of that manifesto and all of those emotions and all of that bravado is like human beings with real experience of dealing with different emotions, dealing with different mentalities, dealing with different physical restrictions. And we all go through this. And I think it's really, really important to understand that coaching is about sharing. For me, no, it's not a definite, but coaching is about sharing experience. It's about sharing wins. It's about sharing losses. It's about sharing experience, the experiences and what you went through. It's documenting that. So for me as a coach, I take a lot of my military experience and a lot of my life experience, you know, that 10, 12 year period of being in the military and leaving those 3 years. I struggled leaving the military. And by the way, I didn't just cut off the struggles. You know, the struggles just become less intense. It's more like, oh my God, the school run's a nightmare. Oh my God, my partner's doing my head in. Oh my God, I'm very super busy and I'm chaotic. You know, they become different struggles. But all of that experience allows me to teach and help people that want to listen the experiences and how we got through them, and the mindsets and the strategies and the models that I use to help me get out of those processes. And it just becomes a documentation really of like, this is how I did it. It might work for you. This is a mindset I have. This might work for you. And it's really not about telling, it's about sharing. And I kind of feel that's how I translate.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's that last part again about show, don't tell. This is a big part of what I do as a coach as well. And why I can tell that you're very well versed in this stuff is, you know, in my coaching group, the guys I do one-on-one, I have, you know, group coaching, I have a Facebook community. And I'm encouraging people to always share their wins, but I'm even more encouraging people to share their fails. And I always use fail forward. So in my group, we have hashtag fail forward, because failure is not something that we should be ashamed of, or B, think that isn't going to happen, because perfection is not a real thing. Failure is going to happen. Like, we're always going to fail. We're always going to mess up, because that's life and you can't not do that. But it's how do we come back from that? And this is what people don't understand, is that you can't do it for them. I can't do for you. You can't do for me. So understanding that, now what's the best way to help someone is exactly like you said, is by living that life and being that person, so they see that it's possible. People come to me, and I'm sure they come to you with the same questions, like, oh, just tell me what to do. Just give me the answers, just tell me. And it's just like, even if I could give it to you, it wouldn't be as meaningful, right? Everyone wants abs, but why are abs such a highly lauded thing? It's because they're hard to get. If everyone had abs, no one would care about having abs. It's only worth it because of the struggle. But that leads me into my next question. You talk about resiliency a lot. How can people continue to show up when life is hard? We want the thing, we want the abs, but getting it is hard. Life is always throwing punches at us.
Hey, real quick, we'll be back to the show in just a few seconds. But right now, I have to tell you about the free Change Made Easy private Facebook community. If you want to join hundreds of change seekers just like you and get free trainings, resources, and direct help from me in order to help make your quest for change easy, then click the link in the show notes that says Facebook group now. You'll be directed to my private Facebook group that I created just for clients and listeners of this podcast. And as a bonus, you'll get a free hour-long training on eliminating self-sabotage. All you have to do is click Facebook group in whatever podcast app you're listening on right now. Okay, let's get back to the show.
And it's so much easier to just not do the thing. How do we build that and cultivate that resiliency?
I love a couple of things that you said there. We use very similar terminologies, actually. Fail forwards is something that we often use a lot. I tell people to fail as much as possible, because I think when you fail more, you learn, you grow, and you repeat. It's really interesting. And rolling with the punches is another one we used to use in the military. I think, like, when we build up the resilience, like, how do we show up when we don't feel like it? There's a couple of things here. So the first one is, what's the alternative? So if I didn't show up today, what is the alternative, dude? Okay, go and sit in your sofa, eat your crisps, eat your chips, eat your kebab, drink your beer. You pile the weight on. You feel shit about yourself. You build up that victim mentality and self-pity bubble. Like, is that a way to live? The way that I always ask myself, if I didn't show up and keep doing what I'm doing now, what's the alternative? The alternative is that vision of me on my bed with the pills and the whiskey, ready to take me. That's the alternative to me not showing up, because over a period of time, I'll show up 1% in the wrong direction. And I'll end up decreasing. One of the things we talk about hugely is remembering the mission. It's one of our mantras. Remember the mission. So what is the mission? The mission, is a vision of the direction that we're heading. It's a North Star. Okay. It's an emotional connection to showing up. Now, a lot of people talk about, motivation. Oh my God, I'm not motivated to do this. And honestly, I want to strangle everyone that keeps talking about motivation. So motivation to me, as it's the same probably to a lot of people, it's just like us being happy or us being sad or jealousy. We get the emotion, it comes, it goes. When it's gone, you're left with nothing. So how can we not rely on motivation? So how can we still show up? Well, when we have an emotional connection to and a reason to show up when we're on a mission, it's far stronger to want to do something because of that connection. Some people call it a purpose. Some people call it a why. We call it a mission. So we always go, when someone says to me, I'm just not feeling it. I just don't know how I'm going to show up today. Okay, just remember the mission, dude. Like, what is the mission? Why are you trying to do this? And we very much talk about 1% wins every day, forever. I don't mean for 2 weeks, to the day that you die. If you show up 1% a day, along the way, things are going to start happening for you. There's going to be big wins, all right? Those big wins are going to be breakthroughs. And those breakthroughs really change the mental resilience that you have to life. So if you imagine a force field around you, if I had a force field around me when I started and I thought about killing myself, I didn't really have a very strong force field. Everything in life punched me in the face. Everything got to me. The more 1% wins we have, the more breakthroughs we have, the force field becomes stronger. So the more punches to your face and your body, the thicker that force field becomes. So harder it is to get consumed by everything that's going on. Suddenly, you'll wake up one morning, you'll be in control of your life by showing up. Like minimum percent, 1%. That 1% suddenly becomes from just pressing snooze button to running half a marathon, from running half a marathon to building a business and doing what they said you were going to do. So your level, depending on where you are in terms of your conditioning, will be different and in that depth. So when people turn around and say, I don't know how to show up when I don't, it's like, Where's the heart? Where's the passion? Where's the desire, the drive? Where's the path? Where's the North Star? Where do we need to be at the end of the week to achieve the 12-week goal? Where do we need to be in the 12 weeks to achieve the year goal, and so on? It's continuous, right? Sometimes, and I do believe this, sometimes I just think people are not ready to take the action, which is fair enough. But for a lot of people, they have to be willing and ready to do the work.
Yeah.
And that's a key principle. If you're not ready, stop complaining, stop moaning, because no one cares and no one's coming to save you.
Yeah.
Like, there's no magic wand here for you, dude, or do that.
Something that you mentioned a few times in your intro that I took a note of, and it was, you said the word identity several times. And then you also said identity conflict. So I want to know how you look at identity, and then what you meant when you said a conflict of identity.
Yeah, it's interesting because we go through life and we naturally evolve within identity, right? And I think as we evolve, the thing that changes our identity are the environments around us, are the things that have happened to us, are the people that are in our life. It's the way that we had the conversation with ourselves. And I think identity for me is a combination of your principles, your values, and your character. And as you shift through life, you see the world differently through your eyes. Like when you're a 20-year-old, all you want to do is drink and chase girls. When you're 30 years old, you're looking to settle down, have children, find a career. When you're 40, we then suddenly start questioning where's life going from here? I'm married, I've got a job, like how am I becoming fulfilled? When you start hitting 50, you start thinking, oh my God, am I a grandparent? Like where's my last 10 years gone? So almost every 10 years, like I wouldn't say every 10 years we change identity, but like every 10 years, there's almost lots of different milestones as we change our circumstances. Like, for example, pre-Royal Marines for me, my identity was just going down the pub every week, getting involved in confrontation, my ego getting carried away, chasing girls. My identity through the Royal Marines was one of leadership, was then one of brotherhood, was one of camaraderie, was one of role model, was one of responsibility, one of being a soldier, looking after people. My beliefs change, my values change, my principles change. Leaving, like that loss of identity. Like when we don't have identity, we don't know who we are. We have no clarity of the direction we're going, of what we want to achieve. And that was the first time in my life, post-Royal Marines, where I really didn't know who I was. I didn't have a mission. I didn't have clarity. I was one of those people who wasn't ready to change. But I didn't know how to, because I didn't know what I was going through until a couple of years after that incident. So for me, identity is knowing who you are, being congruent with your values, with the principles in your life, with your character, and being comfortable in your own skin. And I think that's what's really important. And when we have that, we know what makes us happy. We know what success is to us. We don't worry or give a shit about what anyone else is thinking. We don't have to compare ourselves to people on social media. We go all in on our path, right? And we don't come off that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that word congruency, because your actions have to be congruent with your goals. And I think that it's exactly like you said, we have this identity, and it comes with phases in our life. So this is why most people have identity shifts when they have a major life change. Becoming a father, I'm sure, is a huge one. I'm not a father, but I can imagine joining the military, getting a new job when you become, when you go from being a worker to a manager, maybe, and now you're in charge of people, becoming a worker to an entrepreneur. These major shifts that they force an identity shift on us. But now it's, how can we do that when we aren't being forced? But that's a scary thing, right? Anytime we're going through change, I don't know what's on the other side of that door, but I have to be okay with letting go of one before I could go and grab onto the other.
Yeah, definitely. Another great example is one that I don't remember, when people were trying to stop smoking, is identifying yourself, whether you ask somebody, would you like a cigarette? Someone turns around and says, which brand? I think I got this off Tony Robbins once. And then the other person says, no, I'm not a smoker. It's clarifying what you are.
Yeah.
And I think all of that, what we've just spoken about, really the front door for all of that is self-awareness and understanding ourselves a lot more in terms of who we are, what we want, and really looking at ourselves from I always call it the drone or the bird's eye view, looking down on like how you're living your life and visually seeing yourself and what you're saying and what you're doing. Is it, again, that word congruent to who you are and what you're doing and who you truly believe, what your true beliefs are in life?
Yeah, right. Excuses become a habit because you become the person who make excuses. So with my coaching, this is why I'm so big on self-talk and affirmations and things like that, because we are reprogramming our brain to be a new identity. I have a guy he came to me, after he's like, I've tried every diet and I tried this and I've tried this coaching and I've tried this and it just never works. And like, because of the blah, 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 and he's giving me all the reasons it never worked. I'm like, understand that nothing will ever work now, because in your head, you are the guy who nothing works for, right? That is your identity. So for you to have something that would work would be earth shattering. Like it wouldn't be you. So before you'll ever find, and that means that you'll always find a way to self-sabotage, right? Something will be going too good. It's like, this isn't me. This is, like I'm the guy who always fails. I'm the guy who does good for 2 weeks and then quits. I'm the guy who tells everyone I started this new diet and then I never bring it up again because I quit a week later. Right. So it's like, that is your identity. So before we can actually find success, we have to change that. And that's how we talk about, again, self-talk, and we talk about affirmations, and we talk about the subconscious things that are going on. But that's why this holds people back for so long, because again, it's like they don't realize that we have this stuff programmed into us. And it's like, how can I'm fighting against years of programming and thinking that, like just starting a new diet plan or going to the gym on January 1st because it's the new year is going to change all of that. And it's like, tough luck with that one,
Sort your shit out.
Yeah.
It's really, I 100% agree with you in all of that. And I think what's really difficult is that people will listen to this, but the difference is listening and actioning it. And that is really where the difference is between you suddenly having that that epiphany, the aha moment. You're like, oh my God, I get it. Like it's just hit me right there and then. And I think when you try to force it too much, when you try and force this process, when you try and force the change, that's when I think people become really frustrated. And it's something what I call the expectation level versus the conditioning of where you are right now. So a lot of we all put expectations on ourselves or what we expect of ourselves. Like, this is where I feel I should be. This is maybe influenced by comparing yourself to others from childhood, from experiences. Like, I should be here. But the problem is that a lot of people's conditioning is down here. So there is this huge deficit between where we actually are and where we want to be. And that gap in between right here is where we suddenly start feeling sorry for ourselves, and the low confidence, the low self-esteem. And it's about suddenly having all the things we've talked about, self-awareness of our identity and what we're capable of. So lowering the expectations, not to bring ourselves down, but to bring them in line with where our conditioning is, to make them more realistic. And that is, for me, the key. And that's the key of balancing it between the line between ambitious and being realistic of our expectations. So when we bring it down and it's in line with our conditioning, we're like, great, 1% a day, 1% a day. We creep up a little bit. We're slowly, gradually going up and up and up and up. And then suddenly we condition ourselves to, again, like all the stuff we've spoken about, be more successful, be more consistent, be more controlled with our time and our energy. And we can't force that. We've spoken about that before. I can't force that on your listeners or my listeners. All we can do is work on the process. And everything is about the process for me. The process defines us. It creates us. Sometimes we don't know who we are or what the mission is, but failing, learning, gaining experience, growing, repeating, all of that funnel of process is how we suddenly start finding ourselves. So it could be that someone listens to this and turns around and says, great, all I'm going to do is focus on getting up half an hour earlier for the next 4 weeks, and I'm going to discover myself. I'm going to spend some time for me. I've got 3 kids. I've got a job that's killing me, but I'm going to get up half an hour. I'm going to do 10 minutes meditation. 10 minutes mobility, and 10 minutes listening to an audiobook. And then I'm going to, in the second month, take that to an hour. So then I'm going to introduce and I'm going to improve that morning routine. Then in the third month, I'm then going to introduce, I'm going to join a gym because I'm in the habit. So I'm going to go to the gym and it's that steady progression. And it's about, for me, for somebody to change, it takes a year.
Yeah.
No doubt. It takes 365 days to really see some changes based on my experience. And you're in this for life. I don't want people to come in and change their life in a 28-day program, a 6-week. This is to the day that we die.
Yep.
It's about building a process that allows us to live the life that we want to leave a legacy. Yep. You know, and that's, I guess, my thought process there.
Yep, I love that. And I say the same exact things all the time. This is life. And that's why, you know, even though this isn't a fitness podcast, it is a fitness podcast because fitness is a part of life, right? I cannot take that away. I want you to live a healthy, happy life until 100, 110, 120. And fitness and nutrition and sleep and all of those things are a part of that. That's life, right? That is everything. Because again, if you weren't failing, what are you really doing? You know, you're living life on easy mode, going through the motions. I mean, if that's no way to live. Again, people think that that's how they want to live because the alternative is hard and we don't like hard things. But in reality, all the best things in life come on the other side of challenge. The reason that getting to the top of Mount Everest is an amazing feat is not because you're on the top of a mountain. It's because you climbed there, right? Taking a helicopter to the top of Everest would not be the thing.
That is a great analogy as well. And I think on that point, if you think about people wanting to get to the top of Everest, don't bypass how to get to base camp first. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, literally people are like, I'm going to get to the top of Everest. And like, you know, dude, you got to get up to base camp first. Yeah. Like, let's then go to there in the stages. And that's what it's about. And it's about simplifying the next, what is the next step? What is the most simplest of things? And like, and I used to do fitness and nutrition all the time. But the reason I stopped doing that was because a lot of the guys just weren't following the program because life consumed them. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, all right, let's learn control here. Let's reverse engineer this process. Yep. You know, if you can't manage to get out of bed on the snooze button, sure as hell, you're not going to start tracking your calories because and this is where we just go back to very basic habits and routines. And we start basic and then we slowly go to the next stage. The mission is Everest.
Yeah.
Your start camp is at the airport. So it's like reference points. It's reference points. And then when you start getting good at this and you start building your shit up and you start getting your shit together, then we can start worrying about going up. Don't sprint before you can basically get up.
Yep, 100%. I always say you are where you are, not where you want to be. I used to be a personal trainer in the gym and people come to me and they're like, all right, they're a 45-year-old investment banker. And he's like, yeah, well, you know, when I was in the gym in my 20s, I was benching this much. And it's like, well, what does that have to do with anything? You have to respect where you are in life. And right now, that's not the place that you are. Like, I understand that's where you want to be. And in your head, you want to jump right to the top of Everest because you're like, I want to be doing this and doing that. Like you can't, like you said, you can't start at the top of Everest. You have to start at the base camp. And once you get there, you don't win. You go to the next mountain, right? Like there's an analogy. There's a old Buddhist analogy, and it's something that is basically like you spend your whole life climbing this mountain and waiting to get to the peak and climbing. And when you finally get there, you're elated to see what the view is, and it's more mountains.
Now what?
You
go, now what? Now what?
Exactly. That's it. Again, like you said, this is life. There is no winning this game. And this kind of brings me back to something you said in the very beginning, which I kind of relate these two things. There's no winning this game and no one cares, right? And both of those things can sound like I'm being negative, but these are actually extremely positive. Like,
true though, harsh things. When we say things that are harsh, it's because they're true. And what was really interesting was your analogy there of like the banker when he was in his 40s. Mm-hmm. That is very much identity conflict as well. It's like thinking that they still can do what they're in, that they are still in that 20-year-old identity. Is that I used to be able to run a marathon. I used to be able to deadlift this or deadlift that. And it's kind of like bringing him back to reality and saying, look, stop trying to be that person you were, right? Be the person you're meant to be now and for tomorrow. Like, you know, in your 20s, you were chasing chicks, you want the abs. Now you're trying to have the energy to deal with your job, have the energy to maybe have sex with your wife twice a week, be able to the energy to deal with your kids 3 times a week. it's a different game. We're in a different game here.
Yep. It's 100%. I think that's so funny. Exactly like you said, it's identity and it's ego, right? The thing that's hard, and this is the human condition, is we're very bad at long time frames.
Yeah, man.
Right? We're bad. You're right. So if I say, hey, eat that chip, it tastes good right now, our brain understands that. But if I say, don't eat that chip and you might lose weight 6 months from now, that's a very hard thing for our brain to quantify. And this is where all of the struggles come from. This is delayed gratification, and this is everything.
Quick fix.
Yeah, exactly.
Quick fix.
I'm wondering, how is it that you are so able to focus on something that is 50, 60 years from now?
I think it's conditioning. Honestly, I just think it's a state of mind. Everything for me is a state of mind. And you condition your state of mind. You follow what you focus on, right? Or and if you follow that way of thinking, like everything you focus on follows that suit, follows that funnel. So for me, instant gratification comes in the form of that, fuck, I'm alive, dude. Like, I could have killed myself like 7 years ago and no one even know me. So in terms of things, the things that I want are with it, I wake up with every single morning and go to bed with every single night. That for me, that's it. And I run a business. I see my main role as a dad. I want to walk my kids down the aisle. All of these things, it's kind of like, how I am now is going to reflect how I am in 5 years and 10 years from now. Like, the way that I treat my body now and the way that I treat my mind and my emotions, importantly, it's going to pay me back later on in life, and if it doesn't, I'm not going to know much about it. So I just kind of got this gratitude that it's not all about right now and here and now. I've done all that. That ground me into the ground. That fucked me up in terms of burnout, emotional burnout. You don't win that way. You win with a long-term strategy. The wins will come. They naturally will come. And the journey that takes you from A to B to C, whether it's 6 months before you hit a big win or a year, it defines you. Like the process and the journey absolutely defines you as a human being. And that's the journey. If we just fast forwarded every win for 6 months, I don't know if you've ever seen that film with Adam Sandler called Click. Yeah. And with his remote control, he just fast forwards to, I just want to go to the time where I'm rich. I just want to go to the time where I don't feel pain anymore. Like we don't learn that way.
100%. I love that, especially what you said right in the beginning there of just like instant gratification is that I'm here instantly. I'm grateful for that. And I think that that's such a powerful thing. And that reminded me of a quote that I literally just read yesterday. And I wrote this down, and it's a quote by Annie Dillard. And it says, how we spend our days is how we spend our lives. Yeah, right. Man. So it's like each and every day adds up to the whole greater thing. Right. So it's like people have this weird thing of like, I'm going to be this person in the long run, but somehow my day-to-day life, I'm not doing those things, So like, that's a perfect example of that. Like, I'm going to be that person 100 years from now, 50 years from now when I'm 100, but that starts by me being that guy
right now. The minute you're listening to this, guys, the minute it starts right now.
That's awesome. So the last thing, I think that I love this conversation, and clearly I could go on this stuff for days and hours. So
I think we're very aligned.
Yeah, for sure. But the last thing I always ask everyone is I ask of all my guests is just to leave the listeners with one action step, one piece of actionable advice that they can leave from right now to live a healthier, happier life.
Okay. It might be a bit of a reverse engineering type of thing here, but if you're listening, I want you to write down what the alternative is to you not showing up. And I want you to write it nice and neat. And I want you to write a paragraph, the sentence, and I want you to visualize it. I want you to visualize, if you keep going the way that you're going, how life is going to turn out for you, because that's going to be the alternative, right? And then I want you to frame it, and then I want you to put it up somewhere that you see every single day, like wherever that is. And I want you to read it every single day. Part of your morning routine, you look up and you look at the alternative to not showing up. And if that doesn't motivate you to show up during the day, you're in trouble. When you're on an aeroplane, you're always taught by the air steward to put your oxygen mask on first, right, before helping others. And a lot of people see it as selfish, but I think it's selfish if you don't put yourself first.
Mhm.
Putting yourself first doesn't mean going to buying a bachelor pad and neglecting everyone. It means finding time for you as an individual. And in my case, whether you're a business owner, a dad, a husband, you have to put yourself at the top of the priority pyramid so that everybody gets the best version of you. Everybody and everyone will love you for it, because then you're in control. When you're at the bottom of the priority pyramid and you're carrying the weight of the world, that's when life is shit. And it takes a lot to get to the pyramid, but you just kind of remember your mission every single day, 1% a day, chip away, and it will come. It naturally will come.
If you want to learn more about James, check out his podcast, It's a State of Mind, and also check out his books, It's a State of Mind and Remember the Mission. I've linked to all of those in the show notes, both the podcast and the book. You can find the books on Amazon. As James said, remember the mission and get to work on being 1% better every day. That's change made easy. Before you go, I just have to ask you for a huge favor. If you enjoyed or got value from this episode at all, then take a moment and leave a rating and review in the podcast app that you're listening or watching on. If you like the show and you want me to continue to create more episodes and be able to get awesome guests that will help make changing your life easier, then this is the best way you can show support. You can leave a 5-star review on iTunes like Eliza K, who said, "This podcast is both warm and inviting, but real enough to push and motivate me." Thank you, Eliza. Or you can be like Dalton, who said, "Paul is an amazing host and his podcast is a must listen." Thank you, Dalton. And thank you to all of the over 100 people who have taken the time to rate and review this show 5 stars on iTunes, or the dozens who have left 5-star reviews on Spotify. It only takes a minute, and it helps me grow, it helps me reach a new audience, and it lets me know that this is helping someone, which just feels good. All you have to do is go to the show page of whatever app you're listening to and hit the little 5 stars. Or go to the comments section on YouTube and boom, that's it. And if you really want to show love, take a screenshot when you do it and tag me in your stories on social media at Change Made Easy, and I'll shout you out in an upcoming episode. All right, go leave that rating, and I'll see you back here every Tuesday and Thursday with new episodes of Change Made Easy.